Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining our information session today on the Community Initiatives Program Project-Based Grant, CIP Project-Based for short. Today, we will be taking an in-depth look at the CIP Project-Based application form with you. This session builds upon the two general information sessions presented yesterday. If you missed those, a copy will be available to watch on our website later this week. My name is Michelle Turnbull, and I am a Community Grants Advisor with the Community Grants Unit in the Ministry of Alberta Culture and Status of Women. I work with the Community Initiatives Program, project-based grants, supporting organizations within the City of Calgary, as well as surrounding areas such as Airdrie, Banff, Cochrane, Chestermere, Okotoks, and Didsbury. I work alongside two additional Community Grants Advisors who are with us today, starting with Angie Schreiner. Angie, please introduce yourself and the region you cover.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angie Schreiner, Community Grants Advisor for Alberta Rural. The major cities that I cover are the Lethbridge areas, Red Deer, Fort McMurray's, Grand Prairies, and any of the smaller communities outside of the Greater Edmonton area and the Calgary area. Thank you for coming today.
And Maida Finley.
Hi, I'm Maida Finley. I'm a Community Grants Advisor with Michelle and Angie. I am with the Edmonton region, so basically the Edmonton region, but also includes places like St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, and probably as south as Leduc. Welcome.
Thank you, Maida and Angie. Maida and Angie will be monitoring the chat box today, so please feel free to ask questions along the way. We want to remind you that our in-depth walkthrough of the project-based budget template will be from 12 to 1 tomorrow, Wednesday, August 18th. If you have not registered for it, there is still space. Please visit our website to sign up through Eventbrite. We don't have a break scheduled for today, so if you need to take a break at any point, please feel free. During the presentation, your video will be turned off and microphones muted. So if you have any questions, please use the chat box and our team will monitor the incoming questions and respond during the second portion of our session, which is the question and answer segment. During our question and answer segment, you will have two options to ask questions. You may enter questions in the chat box. We will prioritize these questions first. You may also unmute your microphones when we invite you to do so. If we run out of time and are not able to address your questions, please contact our office to follow up. We can be reached at 1-800-642-3855. This number will also be posted at the end of the slideshow and in the chat box. We'd love to know who you are and which organization you are representing today. We would appreciate it if you'd rename yourselves in the participants list for us. Click the Participants button in the main menu bar of Zoom. It will be located at the bottom of your Zoom window. Hover your mouse over your name in the Participants list, click the More button, click Rename, enter your name and organization, and click OK. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that this is the homeland of many diverse people in Alberta, including First Nations and Métis, whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial. We're grateful to work, live, and learn on this traditional territory. That includes Treaties 6, 7, and 8. The first step to applying for one of our grants is to locate and download the necessary forms. Everything is located via the website listed on the screen. From there, you may choose the program you are looking for. Download the application form, project budget template, and application for direct deposit. You may also want to have a copy of the guidelines open on your computer to refer to. Before you apply, it's important to make sure your organization and project are eligible. If you are a new organization, you must have been registered for at least 1 year and be able to provide us with a financial statement. Choose the right funding stream. If you are not sure, call. Have a project plan and a budget ready to go. Read through the guidelines and application form carefully, making sure your organization meets the eligibility criteria and that you are aware of what documents you will need to provide in addition to the application form and project budget template. If you are not sure about eligibility, call or email us. Be aware of the grant timelines. most of our grants are approximately 6 months from application deadline to notification. Gather the required documents. We will go through these during this presentation. Provide clear and complete answers. Assume we are not familiar with your organization and its services. As a quick reminder, eligible organizations may apply for up to $75,000 in matching funds to support a project. Projects may include new programs. This can include wages for new positions, program materials, room rentals, audiovisual aids, or other items that are directly related to implementing the program. Hosting costs for events of all kinds: productions, films, exhibits, symposiums, workshops, conferences, sport events, and community celebrations. Technology hardware and software. Portable equipment. This includes licensed vehicles, fitness equipment, team uniforms, furnishings, tables, and chairs. Equipment that is being permanently installed into a facility would be better suited under the Community Facility Enhancement Program. An example of that would be a water fountain or a monument. Gender equity projects. In 2019, the CIP project-based guidelines were revised to integrate gender equity initiatives designed to improve the lives of women and girls in Alberta for projects that increase women's economic security, increase women in leadership and democratic participation, and prevent and respond to gender-based violence. Ongoing or operational costs are not eligible. These are expenses an organization already looks after and may include wages and salaries for existing full and part-time employees or office rent and utilities. Listed here are the application deadlines and their notification periods. It's listed in chronological order, with the next application deadline being September the 15th of this year. With an approximate 6-month turnaround, you may expect to receive notification by March 2022. Just a note that our processing times are taking longer than anticipated. If you applied for the January 2021 intake, those notifications have not yet been sent, but we are hopeful by the end of the month. We'll start with the application title page. First, please ensure you are using the correct form. The Community Initiatives Program has 3 funding streams, each with their own specific forms. Be sure you download the CIP project-based application and project budget template. These are 2 separate documents. Don't forget the application for direct deposit. Once you've completed the application and you're ready to submit, you may either email or send by post. The preferred way to submit an application and all supporting documents is by email to lfp.application@gov.ab.ca. If you are submitting more than one email due to the number of attachments, please number your emails in the subject line by adding 1 of 2, 2 of 2, etc. If for some reason you would rather submit your application by post, our mailing address is listed on the slide and on the website. If you choose to use post mail, make sure that your package is postmarked no later than the application submission deadline being applied. It is important that you keep a copy of the application and supporting documents for your records in a place that may be accessed by other members of your board or staff in the event of a change in contacts or executives. With funding approvals, the entire process from application to reporting may be approximately 1 to 2 years, so it's important to keep a document trail throughout that process. Links to the documents and the website are provided on the title page. Page 2 of the application is the application checklist. This is set up to help ensure you have everything you need in order to submit a complete application. Remember that incomplete applications will be canceled. Make sure your organization is in good standing. Make sure you have no overdue reporting from previous grants. You may have a grant in process and apply for a new project at the same time. For example, you received a grant from the Community Facility Enhancement Program in 2020 to upgrade your community hall, and the reporting is due February of 2022. In 2021, you now want to apply to CIP project-based for assistance with hosting your annual music festival. You may do that. As long as your reporting is not overdue, you may apply for a new grant. Remember, groups may apply for and receive 1 capital and 1 non-capital grant in the same fiscal year. The items on this slide are all mandatory. You should review this checklist prior to completing your application and also before submitting. A note about a couple of items. The financial statements must be from your most recently completed fiscal year. If they are not audited, they must be signed by 2 members with signing authority for the organization. They should contain a statement of financial position, otherwise known as a list of assets and liabilities, a statement of operations, which is a list of your revenues and expenses, and notes to financial statements where available. Submitting a balance sheet with no detail will not be sufficient. The list of executives must contain both telephone and email contact information. All information collected is considered confidential and protected by privacy legislation. Letters of support are optional for CIP project-based applications unless it is a third-party project. A project is considered third-party when the organization is turning the money and the responsibility for the project over to another organization. If you are not sure if this applies to you, please contact the Community Grants Unit before submitting an application. Additional documentation will be required for this type of situation. Page 3 of the application begins with Section A, Organization Profile. I will not go through every fillable portion of the application, but will touch on the areas we typically receive questions about or difficulty answering. The application is reviewed regularly with the most recent update in February 2020. Be sure you have pulled off the form from the website, as that will be the most recent copy. We will not accept old versions. Section A, Organization Profile, is page 3 and 4 of the form and includes basic information about your organization. In this first box, you'll need to enter your organization's incorporated or legal name. This is the name on your certificate of incorporation. If your incorporated or legal name is different than your operating or common name, please include only the legal name in this box. Next, you'll need to enter the name of the act that your organization is registered under. Most commonly, organizations are registered under the Societies Act, but it could also be the Libraries Act or Part 21 of the Business Corporations Act if registered provincially. If you are registered under federal legislation, it may be as a charitable organization, and you would put the Income Tax Act. Just make sure the act you are registered under is listed under one of the eligible acts listed in the guidelines. Include the organization's full mailing address, although we should note that almost all communication is now done by email. The bottom portion of page 2 asks you to enter contact information for individuals at your organization. The first contact must be a person with a legal authorized signing authority. They must be legally authorized to make financial transactions on behalf of your organization. Generally, it is the president or treasurer, but if you have paid staff, it may also include an executive director. The second contact is for someone at your organization who will serve as the primary contact between our team and your organization. If we need to contact your organization or ask for additional information about your application, this is the person we will contact first. It is important that this person be accessible throughout the grant process. If they will be absent for a period of time or leave the organization, you must provide us with an alternate contact. We provide a limited amount of time to receive information back. If it is not received, you may risk having your application canceled. Due to privacy legislation, we may only speak with these 2 people about details of the application. Should anything change, please contact us. We prefer the legally authorized signing authority contact and the primary application contact are 2 different people. If you list the same person as both contacts, we may follow up with you during the review process to ask for a second contact at your organization. The questions at the top of page 4, again, provide us with a snapshot of your organization, including your mandate and the kinds of activities you coordinate. Operating budget and sources of income are part of painting that picture before we dig deeper into the project details. This is not used to evaluate one project or one organization against another. Section B is the project profile. Now we are beginning to get into the project specifics and your reasons for applying. Like organization profile, the project profile gathers bigger picture information first before moving into the detail. For the project title, we suggest keeping it brief, such as hosting the 2022 Partridge Family Music Festival, or purchase team uniforms and equipment for Pincher Creek Minor Soccer. With the brief description, basically tell us what CIP project-based grant funding will be used to assist with. You will have an opportunity later in the application to provide background information and the why behind the project. For example, CIP project-based funding will be used to assist with hosting the 2022 Partridge Family Music Festival. The festival brings together 50 qualifying musical families from across Alberta to showcase their talents to an audience of 5,000 spectators. Or 123 Community Club will be implementing a new 12-week Couch to 5-kilometer program aimed to introduce people to the sport of running for recreation. Project focus, type, and targeted audience are straightforward, but as always, if you aren't sure, please call. Project location and address. The address in this section is where the event or program will take place. For events that take place in multiple locations, if you have a hub or a venue that will act as a primary location, list that. If you're applying for portable equipment, uniforms, or technology, use your organization or facility address. Section C, project information, beginning on page 7 through to page 9, is where you have an opportunity to share the details of the project and why it's important. CIP project-based funding was set up to support the nonprofit sector with specific outcomes in mind: strengthening leadership and organizational capacity, supporting community-driven goals that have public benefit, and providing opportunities for Albertans to engage with and develop their communities. When we evaluate your application, we look at the strength to which your project relates to one of the outcomes, and then evaluate it against the criteria in the guidelines. Included in this section are the CIP outcomes in question 1, where you check off the outcome that most closely lines up with your project. Some of the questions in this section were put there with program and event-specific projects in mind. You may find it difficult to answer some of them if you are applying for something like technology or portable equipment. For example, question 5 that asks about similar programs, or question 8 describing partnerships and collaborations. In that situation, it is okay to not put anything or to state does not apply. Question 2, describing the why, and question 4, how did you identify the need, may be very similar. So if you've answered both in question 2, just state, refer back to question 2. However, I would reemphasize the importance of being clear and complete in your responses. Answer the question directly with the supporting information following. So basically, put the most important information first so it doesn't get lost in the body of the text. As stated earlier, the CIP project-based guidelines were revised to integrate gender equity initiatives. These types of projects may be given higher priority consideration depending how the project and organization evaluates against the criteria in the guidelines. The strength of any project is based on how well it aligns with CIP outcomes and evaluates against all of the criteria outlined in the guidelines, not 1 or 2 specific criteria alone. Questions 6 and 7 are straightforward. Question 8 is asking if you are working with other groups or partners on the project. We ask this question because it shows backing and supports validation of need in the community. Experience carrying out similar projects relates to organization capacity, which means a group has the ability to complete a project. How do you plan to sustain the project? Asking this question means we want to know how your organization will be able to run the event or program or purchase equipment or keep new staff employed without ongoing government support. This is especially important if you are requesting funds to support new staff positions and new programs with the intent to continue them long term. While all of the answers except other are check boxes on the form, I would encourage you to provide a more fulsome answer if possible. If your financial information does not support sustaining a program or position, the project may be seen as a high risk for public investment. Is your project viable if it doesn't receive full funding? Our programs continue to be oversubscribed. We make every effort to maximize available funding, which may include recommending reduced grants. Answering this question yes does not automatically mean you will be recommended for a reduced grant. It simply gives the program area more flexibility when making funding recommendations, which means that more organizations may benefit. The next question, asking about a contingency plan, is similar, but this means what happens if you experience a shortfall in revenue from any source, not just this grant request. We want to know what your plan B is. Next is Section D, Organization's Capacity. Questions 1 and 2 ask you to speak to the overall financial health of the organization. Organizations who receive regular funding from the Government of Alberta may be evaluated as a lower priority. If you answer yes, you must tell us if any funds will be used to support the project, and be sure to include that amount in your project budget template, as it may affect your eligible grant request. If you answer yes, but no other Government of Alberta funds will be used for the project, explain why not. The intent of this program is not to supplement Government of Alberta funded programs. The last question addresses a third-party request, which we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Section E is the budget template. We will not review this today. If interested, please register for tomorrow's Zoom presentation through our website. The only thing I will add is that this document is a separate form that must be completed and submitted with your application. Include the amount of funding you are requesting from CIP. This is the first line in the template. Make sure your budget expenses and revenues balance. Provide written quotes or estimates or a source of estimates for all of your project expenses. Provide details on donated labor, including a description of the work being done, how many people, number of hours, and how it relates to the project. And remember, only include labor that is directly related. Planning and coordination time are not eligible. Skilled labor must be verified, meaning it has to be a qualified trade or professional service. For example, if you are hiring a professional photographer to take pictures at your event, you could either use the skilled rate of $35 an hour based on our guidelines, or the photographer could provide you with a letter indicating their donated amount based on their typical billing method, which should be listed. If you have a skilled person providing general volunteer services, this would be allowed at the unskilled rate. For example, if you have a professional photographer helping you register guests to your conference, this would be allowed at the unskilled rate of $20 an hour. Honoraria and operational costs are not eligible. This includes prorating of existing staff. Section F, Electronic Funds Transfer, refers to the application for direct deposit. The application for direct deposit must list the incorporated legal name of your organization and be signed by the legal signing authority. You must also provide a copy of a void check with the incorporated legal name of the organization and account number matching that of the direct deposit. The final section of the application form is the grant agreement. The grant agreement is a legally binding document that outlines the roles, responsibilities, and expectations should your grant be approved. We strongly urge you to read through this before signing. The agreement must be signed by the legal authorized signing authority and be submitted with the application. At this time, digital signatures are not accepted. You must sign, scan, and attach it with your application. This completes the walkthrough of the application form itself, and we will now provide some additional information about funding considerations and the grant process. On the screen, you will see the funding considerations used to make a decision about projects. We have reviewed these in detail in the previous seminars. Applications are evaluated individually and based on their own merit, alongside factors such as regional equity, availability of funding, and prior funding. Many organizations ask if prior funding will affect a grant decision. The answer is, it depends on the strength of the application against all of the other criteria and considerations. But yes, we list it as a consideration, so it is factored into the evaluation. But by itself, it is not a make or break decision. We understand that it takes a great deal of effort and time to collect the information and prepare the application. Unfortunately, not all applications that meet the criteria will be funded. Our grant programs are not intended to provide organizations with regular funding, meaning if you have been successful several times It does not mean you will be successful every time you apply. To help you understand the process, once you submit your application, this is what happens. Your application is received by email or post, checked for completion, entered into our database, and verified before moving to the review stage. Verification means we check that the organization is registered under one of the eligible acts, is in good standing, meaning you have completed the annual requirements for remaining a legal entity, such as filing your annual returns. We also check prior funding to make sure an organization does not have reporting that is overdue from a previous grant. It is at this point that we make an initial decision how to move forward with the application. If there are issues with either the application or organization, such as incompleteness, delinquent accounting, or not registered under one of the eligible acts, the application will be canceled and a letter sent to the group indicating so. Applications that proceed to the next stage undergo a thorough review and evaluation. This takes approximately 3 to 4 months. During this time, you may or may not receive an email or phone call requesting additional information or clarification regarding one or more components of your application. Organizations typically receive 5 business days to respond to these requests. This is why it is important to provide us with a contact person who is familiar with the application and will be accessible by email and phone, or to provide an alternate contact if that person is unavailable for a period of time. All applications that have been reviewed and evaluated then move forward for decision to the minister. Because of the high volume of applications and to ensure completeness and accuracy, they are sent in a single bulk package. We do not send applications individually or in batches. Once a grant decision is made, notification letters are emailed to groups. All decisions are final. If your grant is successful, the electronic deposit of funds is processed, which generally takes 2 to 3 weeks. This is why we ask you to complete the application for direct deposit and submit it with your application form, to make this portion of the process as seamless as possible for successful applicants. Groups who are not successful may contact the Community Grants Unit to discuss their application and why it was declined. It's important to note that it does not necessarily mean your project was not good or did not meet the criteria. This slide is just a reminder of our session taking place tomorrow, specific to completing the project budget template for the CIP project-based program. That concludes the formal presentation. For the remaining time, we will answer any questions you might have. We will start with the questions that have popped up in the chat box. And if there is time remaining, we will unmute your microphones and answer live questions you might have. If you have very specific questions regarding your project, please contact our office and speak with someone directly. If we do not get to your questions, please feel free to call the toll-free number and someone will be able to assist you with your inquiries.